You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. Well then, that was quite the upset, wasn't it? I'm glad all that's over with. Let's go back to regular proper D&D for gentlemen and warlords.
Yeah.
It is, and of course I am neither, but you, Warlord Scarr, you are at least one of the above.
Yes, and thankfully I don't need to worry about any of these magic item creation rules and their nonsense.
No.
I can just focus on one of three ways of making a castle and an army.
Well, of course, because as you well know, folks, because you've clicked on something or you've been tricked into listening to this is yet another Tome of Gygax episode. This is number 19.
Yeah,
if our chronometer is working properly.
Which is me, which I hope I'm working
properly.
Which is
you. which is looking things up before the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so as if you're joining us halfway through, why did I say halfway? If you're joining us at this point in this series, it behooves me at least, and maybe no one else, to say that this is our long-running look at the original first edition Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. You know, before it got complicated, where we kind of pull it apart in detail. It's like the pulled pork of book reviews. We're just teasing a little bit of flesh off the bone every week.
Yeah.
Every episode. And this is our 19th, so we're clearly well into this book. We have in fact reached the lofty heights of page 119 of the first edition Dungeon Master Guide for those of you who care to read along at home.
Yeah, right. As we've said before, like this is about the halfway point in terms of page count, but I suspect the rate of travel will come much higher as we're about to hit a gigantic network of tables, which we will not be going into.
Like visiting an IKEA. Yeah, we'll skim over those. Like how you get thrown out of IKEA.
Yeah, well, we start off with this magic item section with how to use magic items. And this is, I think, one of those points of order that Gygax felt he had to put in, and this is something that got much more formalized as years went on, and I know it was a very particular thing in third ed. In fifth ed, I don't think it's not as rigidly followed, but it's the idea of command words for wands, rods, and staff. It's just like that in order to activate certain items, you need to have the special word. You need to speak it out loudly in order to activate the effect of the wand. And
sure, and what other magic? Abracadam, things like that.
I think there's some really terrible examples later on, but we'll get to that. Gygax.
Well, of course.
Gygax
there haven't been any good examples since, in fairness.
Gygax just didn't do names, man. Names were not a skill. But yeah, this is one of the things where like Gygax spends entire 2 paragraphs going over the concept. I don't, and basically it's about like how you have to figure out the word before you can use it, and either spend lots of spells or going to those very expensive sages, or wait for your enemy who has the wand to use it on you, so that you know what the magic word of instant death spell is. Presumably, you want to send in a few of your mooks to take that blow.
You pluck it off his steaming corpse, you'll be able to use it too. There is one good example, of course, from pop fiction, which is the Necronomicon in The Evil Dead 2. Our hero Ash has to utter the magic words before he can safely take the book. Well, if you don't know how that goes, I highly recommend you revisit that movie. Even for the first time.
I do appreciate that Gygax does put in the if you absolutely mess it up, you could still try stuff like speak with dead to ask the person you just killed what the trigger for the wand is, or contact the outer planes to find some eldritch entity which for some reason is recording every word written on every wand, which I think is nice. But
willing to relate this to you like some sort of tip line.
However, unfortunately, once again, Gygax does not put in the most useful advice, which is the how to resolve the argument of the person who insists that if he just whispers it really forcefully, the enemy won't hear, but the magic will still work. And like arguments over the volume of magic words that are required to make the magic items comply, which I think is possibly one of those practical oversights.
Does
That
it
are
work phonetically, or do you have to understand what the word means? Or
Mm,
is the word even in a language anyone knows? This I
yeah,
mean, this is where Brandon Sanderson comes in.
yeah.
He'd matrix the whole thing for us. But, we've got Gygax, and, I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book. I keep referring to his stuff. I have found myself doing so lately
I
as I've
mean,
learned more about the guy's work, but I've never read one. I should probably read one.
they're only like 2/3 of the average bookstore at this point, so
Yeah.
it's your own fault.
Bookstores? Oh, yeah, that's still a thing.
I mean, it's a good percentage point of Amazon as well. But yes, after that we go on to another more specific form of item, crystal balls and other scrying magics, um, including for once an actual callback to a previous set of rules, which is if you're scrying on someone who's particularly high level or smart or both, then there are rules in the previous section, uh, way back, I think in the combat chapter, for how to detect invisibility. So,
Well, just another one of those couldn't we gather this all together somewhere? Examples of Gygax sprinkling
yeah,
the knowledge throughout the text.
I think that the point here is more to define that scrying requires a little invisible eye, mainly so that there's always a chance that someone who gets scryed on can notice. Um, yeah, Gygax was, in certain terms of philosophy, always said that you should always give people a chance to do things, even if the chances were incredibly low. He that was one of his philosophies.
Incredibly
It,
known in this case being 1 in 20.
it varies a little bit. Until like seventh level and like intelligence 50 or something, I think the chance goes up like 10-20%.
Oh,
But
it's a
yeah,
percentage chance. Yeah, okay. Yes, he was fond of percentages, of course, that
yeah,
just don't
you
get a
see,
look in these days.
yeah, you seem to be much bigger about percentages than the later D20 boom was.
Probably called
Um,
his system something else then. Or well, maybe there should have been more focus on the percentage dice. Perhaps there is. If with all these tables, there is a lot of percentage dice rolling. It's the
hmm,
D20 D100 system, if we're being honest.
yeah, this particular case. Then
Hmm.
we get to one of the fun sections. Now, I've been saying over the course of my tenure at the Adventuring Party that I lament the lack of people using their potions. Like
Yeah.
the magic item tables hand out potion after potion, and if it doesn't heal hit points, nobody cares. And no one wants to have plus one, spend an action to have +2 AC for a minute, or breathe water for half an hour, or anything like that. They the idea of the bonus ability um, in your pocket is just not on the wavelength of the average game player. I have thoughts about that. I've tried various
Hmm.
things to fix that.
I
But there's another reason here why maybe you don't quite want to encourage post use, because apparently for Gygax, he couldn't stop his players from drinking 20 potions before every fight. And
yeah.
so he came up with a wonderful tool called the Potion Miscibility Table.
Oh, I see. Just before we skip right past potions, a character of mine did drink a potion of heroism last night.
Oh.
Once I noticed I had it on my character sheet, like I couldn't remember where I got it, but I thought, ah, hell, we're about to go fight an ogre. I'll drink this, and it was
Mhm.
great. It really helped. It probably kept me in the fight. So yeah, drink your potions, but obviously too much of a good thing. What happens?
Well, there's only a 1% chance you'll explode. There's
I
another
like those odds. Yeah.
There's
This is like
another 2% chance that it will become a lethal poison. You'll be automatically dead. Or if you are mixing the potions outside the human body, it'll create a lethal poison gas cloud 10 feet in diameter.
save or die.
Yeah.
Amazing. The beans effect.
Then
Okay.
there's
Then we go to
mild poisons,
yeah.
various various levels of they don't mix, and either both are cancelled out, or one of them randomly works and the other one doesn't, or they're both at half power, whatever that means. And then, of course, there's the very rare chances that it will cause something good to happen. That having potions will be double the duration, or I think one of them is an option to make one of them permanent,
Oh
which
yeah.
is like,
So roll 0 0 and you've got discovery. The admixture of the two potions has caused a special formula which will cause one of the two potions only to function, but its effects will be permanent upon the imbiber. Hope it's not shrinking. Note that some harmful side effects could well result from this. So yeah,
so it shrinks.
now I'm permanently a gas. Oh, okay.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's an option. Um,
Like the biggest range, 36 to 90 is yeah, they work. It's fine. Just be careful with that. How many can you drink at once?
I think you.
Just roll every time, do you?
I guess.
So as you keep adding to the roiling pot of George's marvelous medicine that is your stomach, you just have to keep rolling in this table, and
Yeah,
yeah, that is a lot of chances of dying.
it's one of those weird things where it's worded in a very particular way where it's unclear whether the scads of healing potions that someone might drink would count as this, or if they just because they work instantaneously, they don't have a duration, then that doesn't count. I, it's unclear. But like, if you're doing a super strict reading this rules and someone says they drink two healing
Every
potions, it's
potion.
just like, oh
Well,
well,
you
roll
might
that.
die then.
Yeah.
Huh.
Um.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
So again, this harkens back to a very specific style of like what in later editions would be, I believe Owen refers to it as the scry and die, where you go to a place of ultimate safety, cast all your buff spells on each other, then teleport in to ruffle stomp the enemy in one turn or something. I suspect that in older games, the Sonic Summer was done by drinking potions, and buff spells were not quite as common. Or
yeah, there's a real net hack vibe to all this.
yeah,
Uh, you start downing whatever potions you discover and hope for the best. Find out what happens.
or if you're a
'Cause you-
real player, you figure out some weird method to diluting the potions in a holy water thing after you dip for Excalibur, and then you scribe the diluted potion on a scroll. That hack's weird. It's wonderful, but it's also very weird.
It's kind of awesome. Yeah,
Mm.
lots of good updates to it. Okay, great to play on phones. There's loads of really good kind of GUI style net hacks on phones
Mm.
if you're stuck at a bus stop somewhere. Okay, that's. I mean, should we talk about how the knock-on effect of this shows up in things like The Witcher and Elric? Was
Yeah, Elric
Does
was.
Elric predate?
No, I'm pretty sure Elric. There's at least a couple. Certainly, if you go to the back, you'll see no.
Right, yeah.
You'll
So
see.
Elric's chugging potions, and
Yeah.
Gary's reading his Moorcock and getting high as a kite, which is possibly the only way to finish a Michael Moorcock book. Go check out Moorcock. And then later on in, for the kids today, uh, I've forgotten his name, Geralt,
Yeah.
Gerald, uh, Geralt of Rivia of the Witcher series, who makes a big deal about concocting as many potions as possible before he goes to fight awful things
Mm.
for money, presumably. And any other famous potion users? Popeye, obviously. Popeye never mixed his spinach with anything.
Yeah, he always took it straight.
But yeah,
Um,
the Witcher series makes good use of the miscibility idea that too much of this A lot of this will make you very strong. Too much of this will kill you.
But yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, don't the Witchers like have a toxicity bar or something?
Yeah, yeah. At least in the game, at least for exactly the same reason. Stop you chugging 20 different potions
Yeah,
before going into any fight.
that's fine because you have a computer to
Keep track of it all, yeah.
record that and keep it thing. But for Gygax, the unpredictability of a table that you could refer to seemed to be far more sudden in its application. He could just go, "Oh, you drunk 2 potions. Here's a roll. See what happens."
Cool table. I think as a GM, if I wanted to really spice this up, I'd prepare some bottles in advance. Cod
Mm.
liver oil, Tabasco, straight vodka, things like that. Just see how many potions people want to drink under that system. We're doing shots, boys.
And now
Okay.
here we go to again one of those just completely plucked out of nowhere and dropped in here because of a vague connection, and that is how to handle level drain.
Yeah, energy draining by undead or device.
Like I would be shocked if there's more than 2 devices in this entire list of magic items that actually drain levels. So it's really more of an undead thing, but apparently we didn't have a
Yeah.
dedicated monsters chapter, so instead it goes here. Yeah,
Oh
it's a
man,
bit.
this is complicated by the fact that we're talking about an era of strict XP bookkeeping
Mm,
and like leveling up, leveling down, and different classes having different level or different XP requirements per level. So yeah, this is serious business, I guess.
yeah, it's awful lot of this section is about bookkeeping, how to handle it if it's a multi-class character. Is there a second set of rules for dual class characters? I think dual class characters are also
How is
fun.
that different? Is that different?
That's I don't want to get into that. I've
Either do I. But well, look,
uh,
at least he gives it some space. It's one of those things that modern D&D designers get accused of a lot. It's like rulings, not rules. And here is some rules to cover this special case where you've got, multi-classing or losing levels uh, for different reasons. So yeah, I mean, props to him. It went in on the bottom of page 119. It had to go somewhere. And then
yeah.
when a character is drained of all energy levels, they become an undead monster of the same sort that killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Feel like there should be a way to abuse that.
Uh,
Um, under the control of their slayer or drainer. Wait a second. So if we can get one character to become undead via some mechanism but retain control, then the next logical thing to do is to make all of the rest of you undead. You cannot
oh,
do
there's a slight way to cancel that. Is that it says that if you're killed this way, you only come back with half your current levels.
So we're resetting the campaign to, level 4. We'll work our way up. But now we're vampires.
I guess
That's
that's
how
one way
World
to
of
go.
Darkness
Things
gets
to
started.
go.
So in fact, to give this so an 8th level thief killed by vampire returns a 4th level thief vampire. A thief vampire is not going to have as hard a time getting those 4 levels back as a regular thief. Like now I'm a vampire
Mm-hmm.
and I still want to steal things.
Well, after you set up your coffin and
Or vampire survivor for a modern example of looting and undeadness. Um, yeah, getting lots of levels of Vampire Survivor. If you haven't played Vampire Survivor, folks, give it a go.
it is
It's just
super
one
cheap.
more fun.
Yeah,
Super
it's
cheap, yeah. I think they brought
super
it out
fun.
on Android now as well, so you can play it on your
Mm.
phone.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so this is like I turned the page to 120,
Hmm.
and immediately
Expecting.
it took this took me like half an hour of going through multiple books to figure out what this next thing was, because it jumps straight from this is how magic items work to your treasure tables, and the first treasure table is this a map or a magic item table? And I could not for the life of
Huh.
me figure out why are we starting with maps? What the hell's going on here? I actually had to go to my other little treasure I got the same auction as this, the monster manual, to figure
Right.
this out. Because if a person's seen an old school D&D monster stat block, they'll typically see that as a monster will be written as has G treasure in cave and K treasure on person or something like
Yeah.
that.
So the
That
the magic are the treasure tables.
I thought the descriptions of what those were in this book. I was wrong. They're in the back of the monster manual.
the treasure tables.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
no, the
Wait.
table, the D100 tables are here.
Ah.
You have gotten a scroll. You roll on the table in this book, but to find out if you get a scroll, you have to roll in the table in
It's a
the
3-book
treasure tables.
system.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
3-book system, and it's a good
Yeah.
thing that the Monster Manual came out first, because otherwise people would be. So I have to
Their
imagine there was
heads.
like a 2-year period of people had this uh, stack of treasure tables in the back of the Monster Manual and had no idea where the rod and staff magic item table was, because the book hadn't been made yet. I
Oh
mean,
boy.
presumably they backfilled it by going through their old copies of the original D&D books, but still, I imagine it was quite confusing to some.
Yeah.
But the point here is that apparently there's supposed to be a 10% chance, if you roll a magic item, that what you actually get is a map to a different magic item.
Huh. Did this treasure chest just give me a fetch quest?
Yeah, oh god, another hand touches the beacon. It's
Huh.
ridiculous. And God help you if you get a chain of these somehow, and it's just like it's a 1 in 1,000 chance. It's just like map leads to map leads to map.
Isn't that the plot of the last Star Wars movie?
Oh, baby.
Classic. Classic.
But it
It'll
is like
stand the test of time. Mr.
yeah.
Markle. Yeah. We'll be hate
Um
watching it forever. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Do we so okay, so there's the map or magic determination. Fine. That's like it's a 1 in 10 chance it's a map. Otherwise you get goodies. And then the map table is it could be a false map, a map to monetary treasure, a map to magic treasure, or a map to a combined hoard. Um we're just into random generation now, right?
Yeah. Like I find it interesting that as a tool to inspire like how to get to the next dungeon, that's kind of neat. But it does sort of out of whim that there's like a 10% chance of you can send your players 500 miles in another direction only to find out their map was fake.
Yeah.
But the
I think perhaps maybe there should be more than one treasure chest. Just, to, to buffer against this sort of thing. What chances you get 2 or more maps?
I do think this is referring back to the. I feel like referring back to the suggestion in the previous things that you shouldn't just follow the random magic tables blindly, because
Yeah.
maybe your players are not ready to go 300 miles to the north into the frozen north to find uh 20 gold pieces in another random section. It's nice if you want inspiration and you say, oh, a map will be
Yeah.
an interesting way to mix things up and get people looking around my amazing game world. But if you're going to be relying on random chance, I don't know.
See, it is good, and he says it plenty of places, like elaborate as you see fit and all the rest. But it is kind of good to have the it put under your nose that hey, maybe this chest is just full of scrolls because it was someone's scroll chest, or maybe it's just got a Ganzi load of potions because it's an alchemist or whatever. Like that makes sense. It's not like where do I? It isn't always kick it open and it's got 80% gold pieces and then a magic talking hat on top. Like it is kind of interesting to have it. You roll a few times the table, you're going to know yourself if it fits your adventure or not. Um, and it's the random table, or the generation tables are a stalwart of any fantasy role playing system, and this is one of the progenitors of that form. And goodness knows, the DM's Guild is full of people who've written tomes of the stuff.
Hmm.
So to which they can all sort of doff a hat to good old Gygax and his magical mystery tables of stuff. There's lots of stuff in here. Oil of slipperiness. You just don't get it these days. That's one that keep fil- filter is it filatier filter of
Filter of persuasiveness. Think,
filter. I'm looking at the one above it. Filter of love, which you don't
oh,
often find these days either. In
yeah,
fact, magic potions were a hell of a lot more fun back in the day.
fun and presumably caused many a problem at the table as someone thought it was fun to just throw a filter of love into someone's breakfast cereal and cause a Dallas level scene in the middle.
Amazing, especially if you couple it with dragon control,
Oh, okay.
and that's the plot of Shrek, at least once. Right.
Uh, but yes, we immediately yeah, there's all kinds of inspiration tables here, and I do like the sort of random map system as an option. But again, there's no clear distinction between what's an option to make things more interesting and what is you must do it this way because Gygax trusts you. Gygax believes that you are a intelligent 37-year-old war gamer with 20 years of experience, and you can make the right decision call. And what do you mean I'm selling thousands of these to 12-year-olds across America? That would be ridiculous. Don't shut up.
Oh, good. Look, do you really want to be responsible at the age of 12? I sure as heck didn't. I loved this nonsense. I didn't play this, but I played a game
Yeah.
that was very similar to it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's have some crazy potions just popping out of the woodwork, or scrolls, or let's just point wands at each other, and on three we'll all we'll all shoot them and see what happens. That is the stuff that young D&D is made of.
Mm.
We perhaps demand something more narrative and serious and considered and world building, and someone get Brandon Sanderson in here to write my campaign. And rah, 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 rah. But there's a certain simple joy to just letting your players kick open the toy box every so often and go, "What is in here? A
Uh,
wand of fear and a brazier of sleep smoke and a carpet of flying. Let's go, boys. Let's go."
I do think there is a wonderful sense of whimsy in that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would run that kind of game in AD&D. I think I would probably go to Into the Odd or Electric Bastion Land for it. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
no.
It's what the OSR stuff has sort of built its
Mm-hmm.
temple on.
Certain
The
section
odd,
of it,
yeah, it's a certain portion of it, but the stuff that would claim to cleave quite closely to it is where farce and fantasy is born. Um, Man, some of these tables, there's a lot of horns. The horn of bubbles.
yeah. When it
No
gets to the
experience point value for it. Oh man, okay, probably do it.
um,
Helm of opposite alignment. Like you don't get that kind of scandal anymore. Right, so it's fun to just read tables like this and go, maybe,
no,
maybe. Nolzur's magic, marvelous pigments. Why WizKids doesn't have a line of paints? Do they? Is there a
they
line of?
do. They have not. They
Is it
do
Nolzur's?
have not. I'm pretty sure the miniatures line for early fifth ed was Nolder's Magnificent Miniatures.
Okay, well that's fine then. I'm happy. Good.
But yeah,
Good.
this is where we get into the hard D percentile tables, and each one of them
Yeah.
has a little bit of weirdness in them. As you say, we can talk about filters of love and um, the different kinds of scrolls, where there's spell scrolls, but then there's protection scrolls, and then there's of course the obligatory cursing scrolls, because everything has to have a tiny percent chance to be just horribly cursed. Um, um,
I consider any talking object cursed by default. Like the fact that it talks is the curse. Which I am not shy about telling GMs, which of course they then foist upon me. Uh,
yeah,
because that's fun. You know, torturing your players is basically why you start this. Yeah, but yeah, curses. Oh man, curses can be a bit of a tough one to deal with. It sort of becomes once you've got it on you, it's kind of like uh, I don't want to say let's call it let's like having dog poo in your shoe. once you have a curse on you, is the only thing you can think about until you get it off you. And I'm not sure that that's always the most fun that you can have at the table, uh, especially if the dog poo starts to talk to you. Right.
But there's a whole bunch of weirdness here. Like you can have like cursed potions of poison, where it looks like it's like a potion of dragon control or a potion of healing. And of course, you drink it and immediately have to save or die. And that's fairly standard. But what's weird to me, is like there's no sale value for this. Like, okay, you maybe you don't get experience points for it because it's cursed. Okay, sure, but I think if if
Maybe
you
just
drink
gone.
this, even the mightiest of warriors will have a good 60% chance of dying. I think that might have value on the open market.
So there's a note here on the what page is it? 121, where the curse result, which is like 98 to 100, and Gary puts in double stars. It is incumbent upon the dungeon master to do his utmost to convince players that a cursed scroll should be read. This is to be accomplished through duplicity, coercion, and threat, etc. i.e., any scroll not read has a chance of fading in normal air. But this can be noted by the archaic wording if read in the still. I'm going to have to parse that sentence again. Any scroll not read has a chance of fading in normal air, but this can be noted by the archaic wording if read in the still dungeon atmosphere. A curse takes place immediately, suggested curses are, and it goes on. Okay, but he's definitely like, come on, we put it in the game. You've got to get them to read it. It'll be fun. This is the DM as a child smashing their toys together to see what happens.
Mm,
Which I've
yeah.
got some time for, but you got to sort of buy in at the door for that kind of thing. Okay.
There
Any
are
more
some. There
curses?
are
Yes.
like
What are your
weird.
top picks in here?
Well, there are also some like weird things of what I think is some kind of weird backdoor attempts at balance, such as there's a whole bunch of both potions and I believe scrolls that only fighters can use.
Oh,
Um, so like the potion of giant strength, you can't just give that to a wizard. Apparently, just their wizardly physique is too unformed to gain any benefit from the potion, so it can only be given to fighters. And I believe like protection scrolls are also um uh, protection scrolls.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're largely to do with being an absolute boss tank. It's like giant strength, invulnerability, super heroism.
yeah, and I that's interesting as a sort of weird balancing method where at high levels like some magic items will be um locked to the fighters who should be using them
Mm.
regularly to get through impossible enemies otherwise. But there's also an awful lot of actually it's a little ambiguous. I need to check the rules for wands again. But yeah, um
Would this have anything to do with the linear fighter exponential wizard problem?
yeah, like this was a problem that Gygax knew about it. Like the first errata for D&D, like a year after the first one came out in 1974, like there was a whole rake of extra errata to give. This is where the fighters having 18 slash percentile strength
Oh yeah.
came from, and
Ah,
I think this is where, um,
the upper attic of strength that no one else can go into.
yeah, and the like who could like wizards could only use daggers and thieves could only use short swords. I think as sort of in another sort of patch on the whole thing to give fighters the flexibility of all those weapons. Um,
Kind of still holds today with martial, simple, etc. proficiencies. Yeah,
yeah,
that's been there that's been there throughout D&D, I think. Uh, yeah, I mean, I get it. It's although it kind of gets broken when you get to Gish classes.
hmm.
So that's sort of
Yeah,
no
the
other way
thing
around.
is, like, it was an interesting idea, but it couldn't survive the massive proliferation of people who, like, their first view of seeing that there was a class and level structure in the DD was how to subvert it. Oh, it's just like, but what
Yeah.
if we did this and he was a fighter and a cleric and is not a paladin? No, I didn't roll good enough stats to be a paladin, but I did roll good enough stats to be a cleric. Um,
Now it broadens out a bit when you get to rods, staves, and wands on page 122, where there's fighter only, there's magic user classes, thief classes, cleric only. Although quite a few of them, some of them, no, some of them, the rod of beguiling, cleric, magic user, and thief fighters are a no there. So okay, that's a
Yeah.
whole thing. That's so. What are we saying? Class specific magic items were a thing back then,
Hmm.
and now it's more like, well, there's the certain proficiencies in various types of weaponry, but we don't have it so much with magic items.
Yeah.
That fair? Yeah, that seems like a thing I could say. That's mostly true.
Hmm.
Oh right. Oh, I see the Book of Vile Darkness there. Just caught my eye.
Yeah, it's just there hanging out on the miscellaneous table, not confused with the special table on page 124, which is where all of the horrible artifacts of Ultimate Doom are. And we'll get to
Okay.
those in a minute.
Yeah.
I,
Let's stop at the bargain bin first. So this is
um,
bits
there's
and
a few
pieces.
weird things happening on the armor table. Um, Notice there's only +1 leather armor. There's no +2 or +3 leather armor. Chainmail goes up to +3. Scale mail goes up to +4. But only plate mail goes up to +5.
Help me out. What page is that?
That's page 124.
Oh, okay. We're going down there. I hope you guys can't hear my mouse wheel scrolling rapidly, furiously. Armor shield, chainmail, leather armor +1. Okay, yeah, the only one there. Huh.
So, like, this is one of those wonderful,
Sounded like it.
wonderful examples of what I would call like a hidden world building in the mechanics, where there's
Oh,
this sort of implication that in order to make like really powerful magic armor, it has to be made out of metal, and it has to be, you know, specially
right.
made with so much stuff as possible. And lighter armors never catch up, can only have the most basic of enchantment on it, which is interesting. I don't know how balanced it is, because it really implies that, well, thieves are bones is the main issue there. And it also means that there's that what much like fifth ed, you just just try to get the biggest plus of plate mail you can find, and everything else is, for the trash bin, or given to random hirelings, I guess.
Yeah, well, you're kind of climbing a ladder there. Okay, yeah. So, and leather and things like that were, again, going back to proficiencies and restrictions on who can use what. It means that there's certain. Now, these are just straight plus armors rather than having any particular. Do you get armor with flavor in this edition, or is that later? Like leather of cold resistance, or
There's only one or two examples here. There's the plate mail of etherealness, and of course the cursed plate mail of vulnerability,
hmm,
which does have a sale value. So apparently you can't sell deadly poison people, but you can sell them armor, which is completely useless and makes them easier to hit.
maybe it's for training purposes.
Hmm.
Right.
And then of course there's an interesting thing. Once again, realism comes in to ruin everyone's day, saying that 65% of all armor is man-sized, 20% is elf-sized, 10% dwarf-sized, and only 5% gnome or halfling-sized. So you get a
Wow.
situation where,
Wow. The
like,
human centrism here is just off the scale, mail.
yeah, it's like it's like if you're playing an elf fighter under this rules, like the rules are mocking you here. It's just like, oh no, this is dwarf armor. Your delicate elfy frame cannot possibly bear this weight. And
Okay. You know what? No, okay, that kind of sucks. But let's go back to the special table where, I mean, almost all of these have had a book made about at this point. And I guess this is the table where his players of note got immortalized forever.
yep, you can see here,
So,
uh, Vecna, his reference to Jack Vance, um, and vulnerable coat of Arnd, which I believe is reference to David Arneson. Jody, I believe, is one of his daughter's characters. Cuthbert is apparently just a weird saint he came up with because the players accidentally found a god in the bottom of the Temple of Elemental Evil and needed someone to get them out of it. No idea who Lum the Mad is. I think he's just sort
But
of
his machine is there. Machine of Lum the Mad. Awesome. The Ring of Gax. Wonder who
yeah.
that's referring to.
And yeah,
Um,
the Recorder of Yasind is indeed a reference to Cindy Gygax. Elisa
Wand,
as well.
Wand of Orcus. Awesome. So yeah, like obviously the most famous one there has to be the Hand and Eye of Vecna,
Hmm.
but it feels like lots of interesting stories behind any one of these. Baba Yaga's Hut's just like straight out of folklore, so
Yeah.
that's cool. But yeah, there's lots of cool stuff there. Names you may or may not recognize or know the backstory for, but it's again a lot. Probably some of these people on this list are probably dead now, but a lot of them can still look back in this book and go, "Yeah, I remember that game. That's pretty cool." Put your
Yeah.
put your players, if you do ascend to the realm of actually writing material and getting it published, and someone even likes it, put your players in there. They'll love you forever.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
swords.
another weirdness with the swords table, where looks like only 5% of armor is suitable for halflings. Only 1% of swords are two-handed.
Wow, yeah.
So if you're playing a mighty barbarian with a two-handed sword, as a Y-hander to cleave through your enemies, you were unlikely to get what you wanted in first edition. But you could get
Rules as
a
written. But guess what? If you're a GM who adheres to these rules as written, you're unlikely to get a table of players together.
unless you can
Think
tempt them with the +1 flame tongue, which is +2 versus regenerating creatures, +3 versus cold using inflammable or avian creatures, or +4 against undead.
Sure, is it in a size I can use?
Roll some
Yeah,
dice.
I guess. Are you supposed to just churn through so much loot? Is this a Diablo kind of situation where
It's well,
you're rolling so much of the stuff that it doesn't matter if 95% of it just gets GP'd immediately?
it's partly that, and partly you have a variety of henchmen to offload all your old crap onto, but also there's it seems to be an attitude that fighters were supposed to very much play with the golf bag of useful weapons, and this is like you have your +1 two-handed sword for killing orcs, or you have your +3 giant bane thing when you find a giant, or if you manage to get a +3 arrows, you can pull those out from your bow when you're in a ranged fight. The idea seems to be very much that the fighter would have like whatever weapon was most useful, and that made their weapon proficiencies into an actual useful class feature as opposed to just sort of a vague permission to be flexible.
Right, yeah. And given that they're less likely to be reading scrolls or using wands and things, then there's a table for everybody. But yeah, it keeps them very much in the game in terms of powering through and leveling. Uh, what they're not gaining in innate abilities, they've got access to many, many more deadly items. Not just situationally useful, but pointy end first kind of things.
Hmm.
Okay, and then there's arrows and crossbows and some maces and things. Miscellaneous weapons. If you're not a real adventurer who just wields a sword like all day, I guess Gary hadn't been inflicted with quite so many s- trick builds. Anyone ever come across a whip fighter or a trip fighter? Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah,
No spike chain here. The weirdest thing here, I think, is the military fork trident.
military fork, as opposed to the other kind of military that are the military, underwater trident. Whole different military. The Navy, presumably. Um, all right, so that takes us kind of the end of the tables. There's a big long thing of explanations, but we're rocking up on time to close out this chapter of the tome. Anything you want to highlight before we finish Warlord?
As I say, we will probably not go into super detail, But like,
No
there
reason
will
we
be weird little bits sprinkled throughout this where we'll have to pause and explain. Oh, there's this. This is the weird exceptions for this type of magic item. So we'll try not to dwell over long on it. But I think we'll go through this relatively quickly.
That's a hollow promise we make for next time. All right. Okay, folks, you've been listening to Tomes of Gygax, our currently mid-length season or series of episodes examining the works of Mr. Messer Gygax as he penned and then shuffled like a deck of cards the contents of the first Dungeon Master's Guide. Who knows? We might do more of these after we get done with the venerable DMG. But we'd have to get to the end of this first, so tune in next time to find out if we stick to our guns and maybe cherry pick a few of the best magic items from this edition to discuss at some length. But until now, I've been SavageMick,
I've been Warlord Scarr
and we will close the book for tonight.
for tonight.
Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.